I think we're all set to start. Welcome to the Babcock-Smith House Museum and one of our continuing educational programs. A couple of announcements about upcoming programs going forward. Dr. Ledbetter will be doing a program on September 11th, included gallstones, not granite. The Historical Society will be doing the sinking of the U-853 on Sunday, September 18th. I knew I should have brought my glasses. Okay, on September 25th, there'll be a samplers and their role in our culture and folklore. And as part of a grant that we received concerning textiles, there will be a South County Sampler Initiative Documentation Day on Saturday, October 1st. And I think that takes it through the fall. Also, after the program this evening, we have a special exhibit in the Isaac Smith room off of the keeping room in the Mansion House. And a lot of the plaster models were donated by Donald Bonner, first to the library, and then when the library transferred almost all of their granite exhibit information, they came to the museum, and so we've created a special exhibit, and some of them are extremely beautiful, and as you'll see, they serve as the model for the granite carvings going forward. Okay, Ellen, you can kill the lights. Originally, we were supposed to be here on April 24th, and I didn't bother going in and editing the date, but I know Donald Bonner well, and can we put the lights back on just for a second? I was remiss in doing one thing. This program would not have been possible without the help of Gail Bonner, who donated a lot of materials and a lot of information to our permanent collections. And so Gail, thank you very much. We had numerous phone calls. She did a lot of digging. She found almost everything that we asked for, but you can imagine a lifetime of collectibles was quite a challenge. So this program would not have been possible without Gail's help. Okay. I have a little bit of a connection with the Bonner family, and as we go through the program, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the charades and problems or troubles that we got into when we were younger children with the Bonners. But let's put it together a little bit of a timeline of the Bonner Monument Company. Robert Bonner, Gail's grandfather, was born in Dalbeattie, Scotland in 1878, and he was a granite carver. But it wasn't until 1930 that he established the Bonner Monument Company, and his cutting shed was located on the west side of Main Street, probably in the area somewhere, is it still called Amanda's Pantry? Somewhere in that area along the river across from the former Cottrell Harris Printing Press Company. His son, Gail's dad, Don, purchased the company from his father in 1947. And in 1954, after Hurricane Carol, because right along the river with a major hurricane caused some damage, and they relocated to Route 3 in Ashway. That building is still standing. I've got some slides to show you on that, and the new cutting shed was erected in 1954. In 1958, Robert Bonner passed away. And in 1968, Don purchased what had been the Newell Quarry, which became part of the Sullivan Quarry, and he renamed it the Blue Westerly Granite Quarry. And he operated that quarry until 1991. So he had to pump out some water and harvested quite a bit of stone in those following years. In 1992, Bonner Monument Company cut all of the granite for the 1992 addition to the Westerly Library. And the last monument produced at Bonner was the URI Vietnam Memorial, and that was in 1996. And then the company closed later that year. Don sold off a lot of his equipment to companies as close as Quincy, Massachusetts, and as far away as India. And Don passed away in 2003, 13 years ago. So this is a picture of Robert Bonner, the founder of Bonner Monument Company. We had tried to find another photo in one of the newspaper clippings that Gail gave us. there was an article that referenced that there was a photo of Robert Bonner carving the letters of William McKinley's coffin in Ohio, the sarcophagus, and we can never find that photo, okay, unfortunately. So this is, he was the Westerly fire chief as well as being a stonecutter. This is the general area, and once again, we're very limited on pictures of that Main Street location. Of course, we've got the automobile dealership billboard on Main Street as well, but I'm sure that this is the Cottrell Printing Press and Yardney, perhaps, on the other side of the river. We've got a couple of other shots that show part of the building, but this is going back into the 1930s. Now this is Don along with the up-to-date truck hauling granite and so on, also still on Main Street, the display yard that they had created there. And here's Don doing a little letter cutting. I've tried to pick out, it's Edward W., but I can't make out the last name on that slant raised marker. So. It's a W or an M, not quite sure. Misto? No? Doesn't matter. Now, here we are in 1954. And picture that we're driving along Route 3 heading towards Ashaway. We've just crossed over the Meeting House Bridge. Okay, and this is the angle that you're looking at. And what you have here is, this is part of the saw house wires that would use to cut large pieces of stone. Now this is from the back, the southeast side, and that's Route 3. Okay, you're coming up Route 3. Oh, the previous picture was taken from over here, and here you can see the wire wheels, and that wire would come down and would cut through the stone. I'll show you the completed building and where those wire wheels eventually ended up. This is the picture I came across. It's a very early photo. This is Don, and this is Ike Smith, and they had just received a shipment of a vault from Barry, Vermont. Exceptionally large pieces of stone, something that probably wasn't available because Don hadn't purchased the Newell quarry yet, where he might have been able to harvest stones of this size for a vault. But as you see, there's 1, 2, 3 trucks as part of that shipment. Now here's the completed building, not in its current not in the state that it was just before it was sold, but here you do see this is the saw house in the back where those 2 large wheels would have been located. This is the sandblasting area, okay, and this is the main cutting shed. Now notice out here we have a small sign that says Bonner Monument Company. They got a little display with some markers with the base and the dies and so on. But I want you to remember this window because the next shot is going to show some changes to that side of the building. What they did is they created a door here, and they also erected a crane so that there was an inside crane inside the shed, and that would bring stone either in or out depending on which way it was going, and then this crane would allow them to load, okay, onto a truck and take it down to the area where Agway is now. Agway, that used to be a train shipping depot, and any crates of stone that had to be shipped to other locations were taken down there. And here, of course, you have a collection of bases, and you got a couple of dies, and here you've got some slant markers, raised markers, and so on. And they replaced that small white sign with one that's much larger. So when you're coming down Route 3, you wouldn't be able to miss it. This is a shot in the early 1960s, and this is the crew. This is Don Bonner. This is Charlie Rainey. This is Angelo Vita. This is Patsy Capizano, stonecutter, sandblaster. He was a sandblaster for my father. He was a sandblaster for Don Bonner. This is Andy Anderson. He was a very talented stonecutter, worked at the Kaduri Granite Company, also worked for Bonner. This is Ellen Kenyon. She was kind of the bookkeeper and kind of office manager. Thompson. Marsha Thompson. I believe Marsha is still alive. you know, and she did a lot of the stenciling and the drawing in the back part of the office. This is Richard Camoli, probably at about age 50. Dick will turn 90 later this month. Still goes into the office. This is Tony Morris. He was a polisher at the Bonner Monument Company. He had done some polishing for my father, and that is my father after he went to work for Bonner Monument Company after closing the Kaduri Granite Company. Now what you notice here is this is that north side with the Bonner sign, and in that previous shot there was not an office building. So they erected a new office building that lasted for maybe 15 or 20 years, and you'll see some future shots where they thought maybe we should take this one down because it prevented access along this driveway to the rear of the building. And this is one of their promotional brochures that Gail gave us. It's part of our collection now. And you can see they've got a display yard with a number of different samples of monuments that were available for the viewing public. And Route 3 is right here. So you couldn't, those of you that have lived here a while, you remember now that it's not a monument company anymore, a car dealership now. Now this is a later photo of that north side, and notice this is the corner, and I'll show you another picture. This is the corner of the new office, and that building is still standing, but the old office was right in this location, and you can see now the sample models are here for people to look at as they were to drive by. But you can see here clearly that the crane support is there, and they would be able to load and unload items on a truck. And here's the new office, and that's still standing as part of the automobile dealership that's on that property right now. That trailer up and back, I believe one of the employees, Andy Keller. Andy Keller used to live up there in a little trailer up in the back of the shed. Here's another shot, and this of course is, see right now it's what, Lucky House. It was 32nd Grill, and if you go way back it was Lantern Glow. Okay. Friday afternoons they might close up the shop and they'd go over and have a dimey of beer over at Lantern Glow. As you can see, that's the new office. That's still standing. Now see, this gave them access. They took down the old office and it gave them access. I can't tell whether they're loading or unloading. There's a raised marker all crated up. It's either coming from the shipyard or they're going to take it down. There's one of the newer Bonner trucks, and each of the trucks would have a little bit of a crane on it to raise and lower the items off. This is the Derrick engine house, which is in the rear of the cutting shed, and there's a couple of other shots. I don't know who that is that worked in the engine house. I hadn't seen in my years of going there. I can't recall who that was. Now this is a good shot of the stiff leg derrick. As you can see, on the south side of the shed, a stone could be delivered and the crane would pick it up and controlled by the engine house. And you'll see in the successive slides, they're going to take this large piece of stone and they're going to place it on a rail bed, and it can be wheeled into the saw house. And as you can see, you've got the deep drill bits, and then you've got the more shallow drill holes, just like the model quarry stone that Ed Fazio built for us in the quarry section of our exhibit. It was very thorough and made sure that we had deep drill marks and the more shallow. And so this would be wheeled into the wire shed to be sawed to whatever size they needed. Just going back to that previous slide, that's Dick Camoli, that's Angela Vita, and that's Tony Morris. This is the inside, looking out the south doors. This is the normal appearance of a cutting shed. Okay, a lot safer than the cutting shed floor from the 1890s in that large photo that's in the exhibit. You don't have quite the waste stone and chips all over the floor, but this is the polishing bed, and this area over here leads to the diamond saw and then the wire house, and I've got other shots that'll show more detail. In that diamond saw area, see, they would use the diamond saw to cut smaller pieces of granite, and this looks like a large block. Perhaps it's the one that we just saw photos of being wheeled in that back door, larger stones would be cut with the wire, because they had to cut all the way down through the depth of the stone, where the diamond saw would have a maximum depth of maybe 12 to 15 inches. And the sawing process was very messy. You had to have a lot of water on hand to prevent overheating of the wire and of the blade, and you ended up with a gray mud. And on a regular basis, someone had to shovel a lot of that out, and they would have a pile out back, and you'd wheelbarrow it out and so on. And one summer when I was working there, I had to clean out the mud from the saw shed a few times. Yes?
I noticed Tony Morris used to wear a rubber apron when he was polishing and cutting.
Definitely, because that was a very messy job, very wet, and a lot of water. Always wore one of those aprons. Here's another shot of the polishing bed. And so in here, the stone to be polished would be placed in there, and this is the wheel, and then the sanding disc. And they would have, just like sandpaper, you would have a coarse finish, and it would get finer and finer. And then right near the end of the polishing, they'd throw some iron oxide on it and buff that in. It would really bring out the nice look of the grain. But it was a very messy job. Here's another shot of the bed, and you can see that there's the wheel. It doesn't have the blade. The blade is set over. Polishing blade is there. Now this is the door. If you remember, not the double door, but the door that would take you out. There was a narrow door towards that old office, and this was the area where a lot of the sandblasting preparation work would be done. I don't know whether this is one of the panels for the 1992 addition to the library, but there's a number of panels as you go in the door that are there on the wall. And if you look at the number of names, that would have not been a fun job to carve those in that. This is the rubber. This is the rubber that would be glued to the stone, okay, with the imprints of all the names, and then with an X-Acto knife, that rubber had to be cut away, okay, exposing the stone underneath, so that when they were sandblasting that area, the letters would be carved in the stone. Yes, Brenda.
Do you know who that gentleman is?
That gentleman I do not know the name of. I'm sorry.
That's actually John. He doesn't want to.
I will say he doesn't look happy.
That was on Bonner before he lost.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that could be Roger. Yeah, now that I see that, a few years ago. But, these are just some samplings of granite here. You've got, notice you got some black granite, and this is, I think this is India red, and I'm not sure whether, it looks a little bit like Westerly blue white. It could even be Barry, hate to say that, but could be Barry. I don't know whether this is some of the blue white that was used in the walkway of the 92 addition to the library, but you see, markers and raised slant markers as well, but you've got and you got some bases over here, but the black granite.
Would he have turned that, John, the ones with the black with that
No,
granite?
no. They did not have a lathe up at Bonner.
So they would deliver it to him?
That would have to be wherever it came from. Like I said, I don't think anyone in town other than Smith had a granite lathe, and once they closed, any of that kind of work had to be done out of town. Okay, now some shots of this former Newell quarry in Bradford. See that John B. Sullivan purchased and had a quarry around 1900, 1905, and then he ended up purchasing the quarry from Newell and the Klondike quarry and the Crum quarry, and eventually they all became, around 1922, they all became the Sullivan Granite Company. But this former Newell quarry is the one that Don purchased in 1968. I love this photograph. It shows you a number of things. One, that's the pump, okay? But if you notice, this is the water line before the pump started to work. Okay, so that's what happens to quarries. The groundwater fills up. But also notice all the waste stone along the edges of the quarry. As they cut pieces off, they just cast them aside. But I remember when when they purchase this and they keep it pumping, this would fill up a couple of weeks, 3 weeks at the longest. They turn the pump off, it would be, we'd have a lake again, and just go behind the Granite Street Shopping Plaza. You can drive behind those quarry apartments. There's a nice fence, but you look down and it looks like a couple of nice lakes. Well, that's what this looked like before they started pumping. But you can see that line, that's where the water was.
John, where did they pump the water to?
Just into the woods. Okay, run it off. Maybe what you can't see here, Gene, maybe they had something in the back here that, they created some kind of a valley or whatever. Or maybe they hauled it off-site, but there's nothing here that would give me an indication that it was going to go off-site. We've got numerous shots of this quarry. There's another one, and once again, there's the water line. Okay? And there's all the waste stone, and here's the derrick that they set up. And we're going to be seeing a number of slides. This is a bed of granite, and they're working on cutting away part of this bed to harvest some of the good stone. There's another shot, and there's that same bed that I just pointed out with that, and you can see they've done some drilling and they've pulled some pieces out, and it looks like the crane is getting ready to lift something else out of place. Once again, turn the pump off, and that will be the water level.
John, what year are we looking at?
Well, Don purchased the quarry in 1968, and so I'm going to say sometime in the late 60s or early 70s. There's another shot, and once again, this is that same general area that they're working in. Okay, and you can see they've done some drilling, and they then removed one piece of stone, and in the next slide you'll see they broke off another large, and they've already got the chain on it, and so the looks like the chain is running down here, and the crane will be lifting that out. But you can see they had to split it off of this bed, and they're probably going to take a couple of more pieces off of that. But notice this is all muck, okay. It hasn't even dried out. They're working in there, and it hasn't dried out because the water level, the water table is pretty high at that depth. Here's some other examples of, waste stone just lying along the sides of the quarry. I want you to remember this red toolbox, okay, because they've broken off a piece here, and there's a couple of slides that will show work being done in that general area. Red toolbox is over here. They've broken off one piece, and they're going to be splitting this and harvesting some other pieces of granite. They've had to cut down some of the branches that had grown up over the years. But once again, here you've got a mud pit, okay, and this is all, very...
That was a piece of waste stone that they're quarrying?
It may have been a piece of waste stone that in the 1930s or whatever, they didn't want to bother hauling out or whatever, or when things started slowing down, they just stopped. I mean, because Don did pull, and even Dick Camoli bought another quarry in that area, part of the Sullivan. You still harvested, stone as long as you pumped it out, one of the quarry holes. And there's a number of quarry holes up in that, what used to be Sullivan. Here he is, got the jackhammer, there's that red toolbox. Okay, he's going to take off another piece from this this bed. But once again, notice how close the water is. The water table is right there. And so when they would abandon the quarry, before too long, those pieces would be covered. Once again, there's our famous red toolbox, and they cut some pieces here, and here's another bed that they've taken. Now, they didn't take too deep of a piece. It looks like they've got one maybe slightly deeper drill hole, but it's just a series of smaller holes in that piece. Must have been looking for a smaller piece of stone. That always works, doesn't it? Can- Your battery is low. We have 12% left. Well, 12% is not good enough. A, triple A.
You want me to do inspection?
If you have one.
No, I don't have that, but I can, if you nod, I will advance.
You can advance. No, I guess it's... I thought maybe sometimes, you roll the battery and it works, but... You can go forward. I think no, that's double. Okay. Of course, we had 9-volt and AA, but we didn't have AAA. Okay. This is the last stone that was taken out of the Blue Wesley Granite Quarry, 1991, for that Vietnam memorial that we referenced earlier. Okay, I want to give you a sample of the fine workmanship that was created at the Bonner Monument Company. There were a number of public monuments and memorials produced. This is President William McKinley's and his wife Ida's sarcophagus, and so Robert Bonner carved those names, okay, in that sarcophagus. And if you go online and you look at these vaults are inside a huge building. It looks like a big domed structure in Canton, Ohio. But that's the photo that we wanted to have, but maybe someday it'll show up. That's Robert Bonner did that. The class of 1982, right at the corner of Tower and Ward and Granite Street. Okay. And the POW MIA monument over on the Pawcatuck side of the Pawcatuck Bridge. And of course, here's the World War II Korea Vietnam Memorial. They've since trimmed back the trees and everything. This monument went up in 1984, I believe. And I've got some shots showing the production of that, okay? This is great because this is the plaster model. And that's Richard Camoli starting to work on it. And what's interesting is this is the arm, okay? This is the arm that's going to be holding the child. This is a little bit of the child. This is the soldier's head. And so this is the challenge for a granite carver. You start taking it away. You can't put it back. Okay, you start taking it away, and they try to ideally try to get to about 1 inch from the finished dimensions before they start working on the fine carving. But that's how it works. Now here we are with that same monument, pretty much done, and there's Dick, putting the detail in place. But the beauty of that carving, I don't know how long it took, but I'm sure it was on that main floor of the Bonner cutting shed for quite a while. But that's a great shot of it, just about nearly completed. And here they are installing it. Notice no trees behind it and everything. Can we go back? Or it's going back? It's going back. Not possible. I believe that's Natty Capalbo in the middle, and I think that's Tony Broccolo. I don't know who that is with the yellow hat, but dangerous work setting a monument. Okay. And this is a copy of a newspaper article in 1984. Notice the trees are relatively small, and that first photo I showed you, there was quite a bit of growth. Okay. The New London's Fireman Memorial in Riverside Park was put up in 1898, and it had suffered some damage over the years. It was in a public place, and so therefore there wasn't someone always around, and it did suffer some damage. Okay. And part of the damage was the back of the hat was broken off, and so it was the task of the Bonner Monument Company to replace the hat. Not an easy task. And there they are trying to drill out the inside, and they would reattach it with a bronze dowel in the top of the head, and they would clean up the monument and so on. But we've got some pictures. This is it being reinstalled, but at the North End Firehouse in 1976. This is Don Bonner, this is my dad, and that's Natty Capalbo helping with helping put it back in place. In New London. Yeah, North End of New London. This is Bonner Monument Company did some updating on the Mason-Dixon line markers, and this is Ellen Kenyon, who is the bookkeeper, just admiring it before. And I noticed the age of this photo. That has the old office building. That's the door coming out near the sandblast shop, and that's still relatively early 1960s before they tore down the old office and built the new one. Okay. And here's a nice picture of Don holding a cannonball for one of the Gettysburg monuments, the Battery B First Rhode Island Monument in Gettysburg, and I had to recarve that. A lot of the Gettysburg monuments over the years, unfortunately, have suffered some wear and tear and some vandalism, and they've had to. They're trying to repair a lot of it. It's just that the talent to do that work is not as readily available. Plus, it's expensive. Okay. This is the government center in Boston, the John McCormick Staff Office Building, dedicated in 1975. Looks like they're doing some letter carving. After the sandblasting, they may need to just to smooth out some edges and so on. I think that's Dick, I'm not sure. Here's another nice shot of Don with the W. Underwood sign, 1 Red Devil Lane, and that's nicely. Probably getting ready to ship that out. But that's a nice piece of work. Okay. It's all, yeah, power. Here we are.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Did you do that or did I do that? Let me see if I did that. I did that. I did that. Okay. Hey, for a while.
No, I think your warning was that you were getting a battery warning, and that
Good.
I think you're up.
Now, in a granite company, producing monuments is obviously a skill, but how to move them and work with them and load them and unload them. And here we have the Columbus Monument, which was put up in 1949, from its original position, kind of in that line with the walkway between the post office and the library, to its current location. Notice they've got straps underneath the arms and everything, and there's Don making sure no one makes a mistake, okay? And they're going to load that up and take it off its current location and get it ready to be moved over. Here they had to take the monument apart with all of the bases and the die. That's Don right there as well. And then here's the base, the bottom base being put in its new location, because you can see the balustrade from by the fountain right there. And there's Chris being moved from one location to the other. And then he's in his final location. So the skill and the talent to do all of that, okay, is something that goes along with running a monument company. And this is a more up-to-date photo, maybe taken 5 years ago. The trees are even now a little bit larger. Here's a list of some other public monuments that the Bonner Monument produced. The first Hopkinton Home Memorial, the Edwin Augustus Stevens Memorial Cross, the Block Island Memorial, the Newport Jewish Cemetery Restoration, the Rhode Island Vietnam Memorial, Lions Club International Memorial Lion at Roger Williams Park, the Bernard McFadden Memorial Bust in Woodlawn Cemetery, Stonington's Fisherman Memorial, the Pawcatuck Flag Memorial just as you go over the bridge, kind of near the POWMIA monument. Okay. So we did a lot of public monuments. Cemetery monuments and memorial. This is a pretty basic, a base and a tablet, but I'm going to point out some of the different features that you have. Notice this base has partial rock face. When it's rough like that, we call it rock face, as opposed to a hammered finish. The front is all hammered finish, but the side is rock face. And then you've got sandblasting of the name and the design. And you'll see there's all kinds of varieties as we look at the different monuments. Now this requires a little more skill. This monument would cost more. Now here you've got all rock face along the side of the base, hammered on the top, but now you've got a raised image and raised letters, and now it gets into taking away. Okay, you're not just sandblasting in, you're having to take away until you get this nice shot of the ship and the name and the anchors and the ocean waves. Yeah.
How long does sandblasting like that take?
The whole process, I mean, if you're doing, it depends on what you're doing, Mike. If you're just doing letters and, names and letters and dates of birth and death, that might be done in half an hour for that. Well, here, this is not sandblasting, okay? This is someone with a pneumatic chisel. Oh, how long would that take? It wouldn't surprise me if it could be a month. The only specific example that I have, on the front of the Kaduri Mausoleum, there's two bas-relief figures of a woman with, and it took, for one of them where there's no lilies in her hand, it took 188 hours. Okay? And the one that has 7 lilies in it took 205 hours. Okay? So this might have taken 2, 3, 4 weeks. Could easily. Because once again, you can't put it back. Now this shows, you've got a hammered finished base, but here you've got hammered finished, sandblasted letters, polished front, some sandblasting, and some carving. And it was not unusual if the person and the family who had this done didn't want the model to be destroyed, it might show up on another monument of a different family. It's a little bit different. There's not as much ornate. The sides don't come out quite as far, but it's very similar to what you saw there. Here it's a little more elaborate, okay, than in the subsequent one. Different family name. Same style in that you've got a polished front and just a hammered finished base. This is very extravagant because now you've got intricate cutting along the top. You've got sculpture work, you've got sandblasting, you've got hammered finish, you've got a little bit of polishing, and you got polishing with a tint. Okay, they can add the tint so you get a little bit of a coloring, and you've got a hammered finish side of the base, rock face, and then hammered finished on the top. A little more elaborate. This O'Hare steel is in Princeton, New Jersey, and I've got a close-up of the top, and you can really get a sense of the intricate carving that went into this headpiece of this monument. Very beautiful. In West Hartford, Connecticut, a fairly basic Celtic cross, multiple bases, all hammered finish, but nicely done, very attractive. Now here you've got a totally rock face cross, okay, in Riverside, Connecticut. I want to go back. I believe Ike Smith did this, okay, in West Hartford, Connecticut, okay, when he was working up at Bonner. Now, when I'm sorry?
Did Bonner do all of his own setting when it was, in Hartford and whatever,
Yeah, I mean, Hartford's not a long, yeah. If you would get into, we're going to look at a couple of mausoleum shots. There, they may have to contract out. And there were companies, especially as you get down into New York by Woodlawn Cemetery, companies that all they did would be to erect large monuments, and you'd subcontract to them. In St. Sebastian Cemetery, this is an especially attractive, the Knapp stone. You've got, hammered finish, but you have raised letters, raised crosses, intricate carving. The top has multiple levels. Very attractive stone. McKnight, once again, Don did a lot of this where part of the base was rock face and part was hammered finished, and you got sandblasting. Some of this could have been sandblasting, but a lot of this was probably carved on the side.
The rock face on the base, because the lawn mowing doesn't chew it up, or it doesn't show.
True. And as the years go on, what you have to remember is sod gets higher as time goes on, and probably in a few years, the sod might be up to here. Here's a Nardone stone once again, hammered finish, but you've got nice carving here on the side, raised letters, Raised letters always more expensive than sandblasted letters. Interesting stone, shape of a heart. Probably most of it was done by sandblasting, but there'll be some intricate carving that may have been done around the bodies of the individuals. This almost looks like there might be a little bit of etching, and that's a popular trend in different monument companies. As the skilled carvers aren't available, using something like a Dremel tool, an artist would do some etching on the face of the stone, and that's become very popular. A raised sarcophagus, pretty much all hammered finish, a little bit in sandblasted letters and emblem. This is a Romanella mausoleum, nice mausoleum, all hammered finish. It's got you got four roof sections, one here, one here, one here, and then a cap piece to hopefully seal, because you've got a seam here and you've got a seam here, and the idea with that capstone is to prevent any seepage. The other way to prevent any seepage, I'll show you in the next slide, but I also want to point out these are vents that allow air circulation within the mausoleum. Now here's a mausoleum that's going in with just a solid one-piece roof, so there's no danger of any seepage. And I don't know where this mausoleum is, and obviously Don didn't own this vehicle. Okay, they would just subcontract to have someone help them that, or it could be a total company, and they would just ship the pieces of the monument, of the mausoleum, and then the company would be in charge of erecting. This is the Serra Monument in St. Sebastian Cemetery. If you remember that 1960 photos, one of the gentlemen was Andy Anderson. Well, Andy carved the arch, and Dick Camoli did the figurine. Beautiful. Probably one of the nicest pieces to come out of the Bonner Monument Company. Very well done. Now in Riverbend Cemetery, we have other monuments here. You've got a slant marker on a base. Sometimes markers don't have a base such as this, but here you've got sandblasting and you've got polished. It almost looks like the top of the base is polished as well. The sides are rock face.
How would the dates be added?
They have a portable sandblasting operation. Goes down on the truck, and they obviously do a lot of that as the years go on. The Atherton bench, whenever this was taken, obviously it needs to be cleaned. Okay, but nice bench. The Gray Monument, once again, here's the split, rock face, hammered finish on the base, rock face on the sides, hammered finished on the front, sandblasted border, and name. Andrews, once again, is that split, rock face, hammered finished, some carving on the side, sandblasted, all rock faced, all hammered finish rather. Peckham, a little bit different, where you've got all of this is rock face, and then the hammered finish with the sandblasting. And here you've got a base with a slant on that, and a rock face around the side. Capuccio, no base, and rock face all around the edges, and then sandblast emblems and names. The Burke Celtic Cross, very attractive. Raised letters on the middle base. Card, split base again, carving, raised letters, recessed inside, a couple of emblems, sandblasted. But the letters would be done by hand.
How do you sandblast different layers with different depths? You have different templates?
They're different templates. They might do an additional sandblasting, and then they would take it out and then put another piece of rubber on it, and whatever detail they're doing for the next layer going down. This is an attractive stone in that the top kind of rolls, and the beautiful flowers. Linda, those are what, passion flowers? You're the expert on flowers. This is the craftsmanship to create. It looks like it's going to crack. It has cracked, you know, that it's paper. And the flowers, you've got lily, you've got rose, and I think maybe an iris, I'm not sure. But, and rock face, hammered finished, sandblasted letters, and it looks like a slant base, hammered finished, but very nice.
Do you have a photo of the back of that with the feather pen?
I don't.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
The detail in that feather is amazing.
yeah, it's a beautiful stone.
Do we know who carved that? Yeah.
Dick carved it. Once his wife passed away in 1981, Dick at Bonner, you know, carved the stone. Yeah.
John, isn't that a tradition for stone cutters wanting to scroll? I mean, that's what I told him.
Yeah, it was not unusual for stone cutters to want to. A lot of them would do it in their own backyard. You know, and if they have a shed, they might have worked at Smith, and they would walk. You know, they'd walk home to John Street, and in their shed in their garage or whatever, they'd be working on their own family monument.
There's at least one other scroll in Riverbend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One or two more.
Ellen, you could put the lights on for me. Yeah, Hoxie has a nice scroll. Yes.
There's a grappelli, the name on it, all that scrolls on it too.
Just as you go in the main entrance, as you go down on the left, there's a nice grappelli stone with some beautiful carving. Beautiful carving. We are hoping it's not on the schedule. We haven't set a date yet, but we're hoping this fall to do a tour of Riverbend Cemetery. Okay, where we'll pick out monuments by Farquelli and Bruiser and Newell and Smith and New England and so on to try to highlight as many different companies that worked in the Westerly area, although we found 100 companies, and going through old city directories of Westerly, 100 different companies. Some were as large as Smith and New England Granite. Others were one man working in his garage at his house, doing one stone at a time. Okay. Questions? Pat?
Could a customer or a family pay for the exclusive use of a particular design, or did the BonnerMonument Company own the design?
As Ike explained to me once, it would cost a little more, and then the model would be destroyed. Okay? Ellen?
Did your dad do his own stone?
Well, no, because what, he did the market, the stone itself, it's the York, my mother, the York burial plot is where my father is buried. And he did the market, but, an interesting thing about my father, I think in World War II, know, one stone that wasn't shown here was the rafting stone in Riverbend. And the rafting stone features a three-masted schooner. And the three-masted schooner was my great-great-grandfather, Joseph York's ship, the Ravenswood. It was sunk off of Venezuela. And we have a model of that was given to him when they were going to build a ship in Stonington. So when Herbert Athland said to my dad he wanted a schooner, that he took that York ship and put it on to his stone. And that's one of my favorite, along with the Able.
Yes.
I love that stone. I love ships. Those are my two favorites.
Lucille?
Getting back to the quarries, when they first started, it seemed like that was very dangerous. Were there a lot of accidents?
Oh, people lost fingers, people lost eyes. And you have to remember, because we grew up and the quarries were there. But imagine an outcropping when Orlando Smith started here on the hill. There was an outcropping and you start banging away at it. We're talking, this is 1850, okay? And any dirt you wanted to take away was with a shovel. You didn't get 20, 30, 40, 100 feet down in a couple of years because they didn't have the machinery, to do that. It was animal and humans that dug those quarry holes initially.
John, I have a story about this. In 1989, my dad was taking OSHA down the quarry house. He fell and broke his leg.
The OSHA gentleman?
OSHA, no, my father.
Oh, your father. It would have been better if OSHA broke his leg. Yeah, over the years, we've seen so many photos, especially of the Smith Quarry, and we've said, imagine what OSHA would say today. Okay? So anyway.
Well, OSHA almost put the business, I didn't put my father in the business,
Sure.
with a number of things that had to be done in the shed
Yeah.
to make it comply with the regs, so.
I think quarry work and lumberjacking are the two most dangerous jobs, according to commercial fishermen too, yeah, especially in the Bering Sea. Any other questions or comments?
John, that monument that didn't have a base,
The Cappuccio.
would there have been something in?
Oh, they'd have to pour a footing.
Something.
I mean, for all of the stones, the base isn't just set on the ground. If you travel around older cemeteries and you see the stones, then you know they didn't put any base at all, or they didn't go deep enough, okay, with the solid. It's like pouring a foundation for a home without a footing, okay? Yeah, they all had that. Ed?
I just want to comment about these artists, about the work that was done here, because just this week, just last week, we stopped in Rockadages and Barry Run. Now, by their own initiative, they're like the premier place, and they'll have granite forever. But you look at the statuary that they're the most proud of, and the gentlemen in those pictures would not have let it leave their shop. Because it's almost all machine done.
Right.
The granite is not of the quality that you can put that kind of detail into. And I mean, it's beautiful if you're 50 feet away from it, but if you get close to it, like we can do here, you really see the difference. And I'm not knocking them. They're probably doing the best work that's being done in the world.
The skilled labor, that craft has been lost. And if you join us for the tour of Riverbend, you really have to get up close. Like it's the Milner and the Richardson monuments. I've climbed right up on them, to see the detail. I know, no one from Riverbend.
No, we know.
I know. You're on the board of Riverbend Cemetery. You forget what I say. You climb right up to see the detail. See the detail and the Nidal, Celtic cross. Just beautiful, beautiful carving. There are some monuments that are in Riverbend Cemetery that have been produced at Barry. And if you just do a compare and contrast, it's just totally different from what was produced at any one of the up to 100 companies in the Westerly area over the last, 150 years.
John, do you know if the gardens in Newport are still the ones that did the Kennedy
Yes, there's
Stone
still,
John?
that's still working.
Weren't they recently featured in something?
A lot of great work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they do still.
And there's it's a Benson family, isn't it also? That does still father and son. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Don't forget the models in the Isaac Smith room if you want to take a quick peek today. And this schedule, of course, if you go to our website, babcocksmithhouse.org, you can get the full events calendar. We'll have these posted on the bulletin board as well. Thank you for coming this evening.